Welcome, everybody. Our hosts today, Lubavitcher Yeshiva in Crown Heights, and talmidim, Yeshivas around North America for our third webinar. Take the opportunity to thank our previous hosts, Cheder Menachem in Los Angeles, California, as well as Cheder Lubavitch in Morristown for hosting our first two webinars. We've gathered here together Erev Chof Cheshvan. Chof Cheshvan is the birthday of the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab, who is also the founder, the Miyasid of Yeshivas Tomchei Temimim in Lubavitch, the Lubavitcher Yeshiva, which we all learn in, and we are all his talmidim, his Temimim. And in preparation for Chof Cheshvan, put us in the right frame of mind to better prepare ourselves to celebrate the day, to make it part of our lives, to take something from it. We have the honor and pleasure of having Rabbi Levi Baumgarten, Shliach Rebbe to New York City, who has taken from his time to bring with us, share with us some stories, some thoughts, ideas, and a reality that we could take and make part of our lives in preparation for Chof Cheshvan and moving forward. B'chavod gadol, Rabbi Baumgarten.
Thank you very much. It's very nice to come into a class when it's so quiet. It's so nice. You guys doing a great job. Unusual, but it's great. Welcome, everybody. Today, I'm coming here to bring with you a little bit, of course, about Chof Cheshvan, but also to share with you some experiences that I have the zechus, that I go every day with a mitzvah tank into Manhattan. And of course, I want to share with you some stories of the Rebbe. And I also want to tell you how important it is for you to know that every Friday when the Bachrim go out on Mitzvah, the feedback that I get from the Balabatim is so special. How much they appreciate it, how much they love it, how much they look forward every week. That when the Bachrim come, it's amazing. If you only really knew, those of you that go on Mitzvah Friday, and those of you that will go, after you hear the few words, you should realize that how important it is, because not only do they love when you come, but they really wait for you to come, and you've helped them a lot of times. So first thing is, I don't know if you know, but the mitzvah tank on Kingston Avenue and President Street, the nice mitzvah tank, every day I have the zechus for many, many years, since 1989. I go on Mitzvah, and many, many stories take place. I also have the zechus to be a Shliach of the Rebbe in the Hamptons called Watermill. So I have the shlichus of the mitzvah tank and I have the shlichus of Watermill. So we'll share with you some stories. Just to start off one story, that this Friday, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal. Now, the Wall Street Journal is a very big paper. Baruch Hashem, you don't know about it. I hope you don't know about it. And this paper goes all over the United States and maybe more. And the one who wrote the article, he started to come about a year ago into the mitzvah tank Wednesdays, where I'm parked on 57th and 5th. And he comes every Wednesday, and we started to get very close, started to put on tefillin. And he told me that he has a situation with his daughter, that his daughter unfortunately wants to marry a guy. So I connected him with the one who works with me, Rabbi Stone, and my son, Rebbe Baumgarten, works with me, and another young man, Kalman. And this guy wrote an article. And this Friday, the article came out, and I just want to tell you something, boys, that it had such an effect because I received phone calls and I received emails literally from all over the United States of America, how they were impressed, how they got connected, how special it is. I also want to share with you, and I want you to listen very careful, guys, because this has to do with you. Every Friday, you know, Bachrim go on Mitzvah and they go to people's offices. A young man went to an office, and he was going there for a while. And he realized that the guy that he went to, the head of the office, is very depressed. So first he tried to speak to him, but he didn't want to answer. After another week or two, he said, "You must tell me, what's wrong?" So he told him, he said that I've been married for X amount of years, many years, and all of a sudden my wife doesn't want to talk to me anymore. She wants to get divorced. So the boy says, I'm a young man. I'm only 17, 18 years old. I really can't help you, but there's somebody that could help you. He says, who could help me? He says, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He says, what? Who's Lubavitcher Rebbe? So he explained to him who the Rebbe is. And he told me you should go to the oil, and I'll go with you. You'll write a letter, and he explained to him the whole way where it works. And when you go there, let's see what happens, and I'm sure the Rebbe will take care of you. Boys, listen to this. Amazing. This guy goes to the oil, he writes a letter, and he's very tzibrochen, he breaks down in the oil, and he cries. And he asks the Rebbe for help. And remember, the only reason why he went to the oil is because of one of the boys like you who told him to go because of the Mitzvah on Friday. And he went to the oil. He wrote his name. He went in. I told you, and he was very, very tzibrochen. He cried out his heart to the Rebbe. And when he leaves the oil, he goes into the room, the tent outside the oil, and his phone rings. And on the other line, it's his wife, who haven't spoken to him in 2 months. And she says, Harry, I was thinking, I don't even know why I got upset with you, but it would be nice if we can get together, maybe talk a little bit. Can you imagine, boys? He goes out of the oil, and his phone rings, and he tells his wife, you're not going to believe it. You know where I am now? I'm at the oil. And he explains her what the oil is. And she says to him, listen to this. Wait for me, because I want to come now. And I want to come give thanks to the Rebbe together. And she comes to the oil, and they both go into the oil to the Rebbe. And she says, thank you. And of course, they got together, and now he's doing more stuff in Yiddishkeit, and she's doing more stuff in Yiddishkeit. Why? Because one of you boys like you was interested in another person. And not only did you bring a family back together, but you brought a guy back to do more Torah mitzvahs. I want to explain you something, boys. And I want you to know, and I want you to listen to this, because it's so important. Every one of you boys should know that the Rebbe knows everything what you're thinking and what you're doing. And the Rebbe cares about you. Listen. It's good stories, I promise you. It's great stories. It's all the Rebbe. Listen. The Rebbe cares about you. The Rebbe loves you. And the Rebbe knows exactly what's going on. Every moment. My uncle, Rabbi Grona, the Rebbe's secretary, told me a story. He told me that a Masnagid called him up and said to him, is it possible I could have Yeshivas with the Rebbe? Now, boys, I want to explain you something. For Tavshin, Lamed Ches, B'Toshem Mem, the Rebbe would have Yeshivas 3 times a week, which means 3 times a week, approximately from 8 o'clock to either 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, the Rebbe would sit all night and have Yeshivas. Understand, boys? And then next morning, the Rebbe was in 770 very early again. 3 times a week. So he asked Rabbi Grona if he can go in. And Rabbi Grona says, I know who you are, but I'll only let you in if you promise me you won't be there more than 5 minutes. So he promised. But he had about 40-something questions to ask the Rebbe. So he sat down with his friend, and he wrote down 20 questions. And the other 25 questions, he left in his hotel room in Manhattan, and he didn't bring it with him. He came into Yeshivas, and the man was in Yeshivas for 15 minutes. When he came out, he was white like a ghost. And after Rabbi Grona allowed the next person to go into the Rebbe, he said to Rabbi Grona, if I didn't see it with my own eyes, I wouldn't believe it. He says, I'm not a Lubavitcher. And all the people where I come from make fun of Lubavitch. He says, but I witnessed Ruach HaKodesh, and I witnessed that the Rebbe knows everything. He said, what happened? He said, when I came into Yechidus, I gave the Rebbe my note, and the Rebbe didn't answer me one question. Not one question what I wrote on the note. So he thought, I'm a misnagid. Maybe the Rebbe doesn't know what's going on. Maybe everybody's right. And at that moment, the Rebbe starts answering him every question that he has where he left in Manhattan. All the questions that he didn't bring to the Rebbe starts answering him one by one. All the questions. And the 20 questions that he had here, the Rebbe didn't even answer. Because those, the questions really Manhattan were the most important ones, which he didn't realize. Why am I telling you the story? I'm telling you this story because I want you to know, boys, that the Rebbe knows everything what's going on before, after. The Rebbe knows everything. It's unbelievable. Just last week, a lady came into the Mitzvah tank. Just last week. She's from Toronto. She told me in 1991, for the first time in her life, someone told her go for dollars to get dollars by the Rebbe. She said, I never saw the Rebbe. The Rebbe never saw me. And I went for dollars. And as I go for dollars, the Rebbe gives me $1. I walk away. And the Rebbe calls me back again. And he gives me a second $1. I walk away. He calls me back. He gives me a third $1. I walk away. He calls me back. He gives me a $4. And the Rebbe gave her $5. She says to me, I wasn't married. I didn't know what the Rebbe was saying. I was looking for a chassan to get married, but I couldn't find. And the Rebbe gave me a bracha, and I left. 3 weeks later, a shidduch was presented to me, and that was the man I married. And let me tell you something, she says to me, I have 5 children now. 5, this is just last week. Walks into the tank, and these are hundreds, thousands of stories that are taking place on a daily. It's unbelievable. But I want to talk to you to understand that when I'm in the mitzvah tank, and when I am doing Mitzvah, and Baruch Hashem, over 350 people come a week in the tank. We have minyanim, we have a Sefer Torah, we have shiurim. But you know what people talk about a lot? Is the boys who come to their office on Friday and how excited. And I want to tell you something else. Many of the guys who come to me just come to say hello. Because you know why? Because they put on tefillin already. Why do they put on tefillin? Because you boys go to their office and you got them to put on tefillin every day. So they just come either to get a million or to learn. So you should understand the responsibility that you have and how important it is and how special you are. Because you have no idea. And I want to tell you something else. When a Lubavitcher boy walks down the street, or a girl, the Rebbe said this by Fabrengen, and I see it all the time. You can see a difference between a Lubavitcher and not a Lubavitcher. And that's why, again, you have a responsibility. You know, I know a guy who told me that when the boys would come to him Friday, for a long time, he would not let them in. You know why? I said, why, Jack? He says, Rabbi, because when they would come in, the jacket would be hanging, the shirt would be there. He said, I'm just a clean guy. I just couldn't take it. He said, and I had a camera, and I'd always look in the camera. He says, one day, the secretary tells me the boys are here, and I give a look. The boys are dressed nice, and I let him in for the first time. He says that was the greatest thing he ever did, because he realized that these boys are so great. No, so their shirt is out. But I'm just trying to tell you is how important it is to go nice, menschlich, respectful. What you do here is something else. But when you go out on the street, people look and they want to see how special you guys are. I want to tell you another story that Rabbi, my uncle told me. Another story. I just want you to understand how the Rebbe knows everything now, before, after. A boy was turning 13. And his father took him to the Rebbe, and he asked for a bracha. The Rebbe told him that you should check the boys of Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. Listen to this, guys. Listen to this. You should check the Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin. So he tells the Rebbe, our minig is we put on Rabbeinu Tam's only after we're married. Not like Lubavitch or a lot of Chassidim. We do it 13, other Chassidim do it 18, and other people do it when they got married. So he tells the Rebbe, we don't put it on till after he's married, he's only 13. Said the Rebbe to him, check your son's Rabbeinu Tam's after he's married. Could you imagine? The Rebbe tells him, check your son's Rabbeinu Tam's tefillin after he's married. This is 13 years old. And he gets married. Many years later, his father forgets the whole story. And after he got married, I guess there was some difficulties in the family, things were happening. And the father remembered what the Rebbe told him. He took his son's tefillin to the sofer. Obviously, you know the answer. The answer is that the tefillin were no good. The tefillin were puzzled. But how did the Rebbe know? This is 13. This is 12 years later. Boys, the Rebbe knows everything. The Rebbe's watching everything you do. And the Rebbe's connected to you. I want to share with you another story. Again, I'm telling you stories that I want you to understand how important it is. I had a friend of mine, his name is Arthur, came to the tank. I became very, very friendly with him. He was a big guy, and he was he was depressed. And he was going out, he wanted to get married to a non-Jewish girl. After 5-6 weeks, when I felt more comfortable with him, I told him, Arthur, Avram, you can't marry the guy. You're not allowed to. Rabbi, you don't understand. I had such problems in my life. I have this problem, that problem. You have to understand, I have to marry her. After another few weeks, I started helping. I said, you know what? I want you to come with me to the oil, to the Rebbe. And I explained to him what the oil is. And write a note to the Rebbe. And see what the Rebbe says. He says, I'll only come to the oil on one condition. Here it is. One condition. If he can come with his goyish girlfriend. So I told him, you can come whoever you want with. The Rebbe can handle everything. So, comes back with me from the tank. Take him to my house. We made dinner together. After that, we wrote a note to the Rebbe. And I went to the oil with him. We went in. His goyish girlfriend was with me. We went into the oil. We said that we davened. We go. Comes out. He goes home. Next morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, my phone rings. It's Arthur. And he's screaming on the phone. Rabbi, I need to see you right now. I said, I can't. He said, I need to see you. I said, oh, okay. But as I got up, I was up already. I davened. And I went down to Manhattan. And when I came into his office, he was shaking. He was shaking. And he said to me as follows. He said to me, my grandfather, this guy's grandfather is gone 25 years. He hasn't seen him. Last night he came in this dream. And he said, Avram, you must get rid of that shiksa right now. You must. So I said to him, Avram, what's going on? Arthur, he says, what do you mean? She's out. It's over. It's done. It's done. This happens all the time. And I want to tell you another story that a bacher told me. He was trying to get a ride to the oil, and a guy told him he's leaving in 10 minutes. So he ran into the mikveh. He said, wait for me. He ran to the mikveh, came out. He went to the oil. Listen to this. Went to the oil. On the way back from the oil, he fell asleep. Listen to it. He fell asleep. And in his dream, the Rebbe comes to him. The Rebbe tells him as follows. The Rebbe tells him, next time you come to me, make sure you're wearing tzitzis. He gives a look. He was rushing so fast in the mikveh, he forgot to put on his tzitzis. This Bacha told me. He says, and the Rebbe told him, next time you come to me, make sure you're wearing tzitzis. The Rebbe knows everything. The Rebbe is connected to all of us. Another story. In 1947, you hear, boys? In 1947, the Rebbe went to Paris to pick up his mother. I'm sure you know, boys, right? Rebbe Tzimchana, or Hashem, got out of Russia. And when she got out of Russia, she came to Paris. And we all know that the Rebbe left New York and he traveled to Paris to pick up his mother and bring her to New York, where Rebbe Tzimchana lived on President and Kingston, 14, right? 14, I'm sure you know this. I'm sure you were told. And till 1965, from 1947 to 1965. When the Rebbe went to pick up his mother, the Rebbe made many, many fabrengens in Paris. That means Paris was a place where many Yidden came after the war. And people from all over were coming to the Rebbe, because the Rebbe wasn't a Rebbe yet. He was only the Frierdiker Rebbe's son-in-law. But people were coming to see the Rebbe. At one fabrengen, after the Rebbe fabrenged, a lady came over to the Rebbe and told the Rebbe, oh, my whole family has probably died in the Holocaust. I have no idea if any of my family's left. My mother, my sisters, my brother, I don't know. And I want to know if they're alive. So the Rebbe says, write down the names of your mother, father, your brother, your sister. I will take the names back with me to New York, and I'll give it to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and I'll ask the Frierdiker Rebbe, and I'll get you an answer. And the lady gives a cry, she gives a scream, she says, no, I want you to tell me. I want you to tell me. And she starts crying. And the Rebbe says, give me the paper. The Rebbe walks over to the window. And the Rebbe looks at the paper and he says to her as follows, that your mother and your sister are in Gan Eden. Your other sister is in Prague. And I think another sister was somewhere else. Go there and you'll find them. Boys, this is 1947, 3 years before the Rebbe became Rebbe. And the lady tells a story. She traveled to Prague. And of course, she met her sister. The Rebbe knew exactly already then what's going on. We have another few minutes, another 5 minutes, right? 3-4 minutes. I have a friend. His name is Danny Branova. I'm very close to Danny Branova. I want to tell you a story. And I want you to hear the story because something that you probably ask yourself all the time. I'm very close with him for many years. I'm very close to his father, Yeshivas Tomchei Temimim, Yirmiyahu ben Devoida, Yeshivas Tomchei Temimim. And I always pressure him. I said, Danny, you got to go to the oil. You got to go. You know, you need brachas. So one day he says a comment to me. He says to me, how do I know? Like, you know, how do I know if it's like, not that he knows it's real because it's big. How do I know that like, you know, the Rebbe knows like what's happening, of course. But so I tell him, you got to go to the oil. He goes to the oil. And listen to this, boys. And I go with him. When he goes out of the oil, he gets a text right as we're walking up the pathway. I'm with him. He gets a text. And that text is a yuman. It's a diary of going back many, many years when he was a small boy. And the diary writes that when the Rebbe came from this house, and the Rebbe came out to Kriyas HaTorah that morning, not like the Rebbe the last years, the Rebbe would have the whole davening with everybody, but the early years, the Rebbe only came out to Kriyas HaTorah or to Mincha Ma'ariv. When the Rebbe came out to Kriyas HaTorah, he saw Danny Branova in the diary, and he gave Danny Branova tzedakah to put in tzedakah and something else he said something to Danny Branova. Further on in the diary, the Rebbe writes that he received the duch from the mitzvah tanks. He received the duch from the mitzvah tanks, and the Rebbe gave a bracha to the mitzvah tank. This is his text that he received walking right out of the oil as we went together. So, my dear friends, Bachrim, I want to finish off by telling you, you have a tremendous chus, and you have such a why, because we are the ones that is going to bring the Geula. Chof Cheshvan's tomorrow, you know the whole thing of Tomchei Temimim, Malchus Beis David, and we see what's happening around the world. It's up to you. It's up to you guys. You're the ones who could do it. And remember, if you don't go, you should start going with Tzayim Friday or different times when you're allowed to, because people are waiting for you. They want to see you. And the ikr is we should have the Hizgalus of Melech HaMashiach right now. Thank you.